Linda Gray Martin sits at the center of the gravity field as SVP and Chief of Staff at RSAC Conference. Linda, welcome to the Security Equation.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. Look, I want to talk about how you got into this. You built an extraordinary career inside one of the most influential conferences that we have in this country. But let's go back to the beginning. What drew you to the events industry?
I know. Well, I'm just about to celebrate my 20th anniversary at RSAC, which
Congrats.
is crazy. I'm dating myself here, but so I started at RSAC back in 2006. I was a few years out of university, and it was actually a former colleague of mine who was working in HR over at RSA Security, who owned RSAC Conference at the time. And he kind of sent this opportunity to me. I honestly didn't really know too much about cyber at that point, other than I knew it was becoming more and more visible. And,
Right.
It affects all of us, right? So the first few years, I was actually responsible for organizing RSA Conference Europe, as it was back then. The first conference I was ever involved in with the company was in Nice. Which doesn't sound too bad, does it? It was a really interesting experience. And then we looked at moving it to London for kind of the next five or so years. And then gradually over the years, we branched out into China. We had RSAC in Singapore and in Abu Dhabi, and just where I was geographically located, it made sense for me to be really heavily involved in them. And then I just started taking on more and more with this US conference. And the kind of rest snowballed from there. I ended up moving over here in 2013. And funny enough, it was for work, but it was for love as well. So I met my husband. He at the time was the chief security officer of EMC, who had bought RSA along the way. And we met at RSA conference in China, where he was doing a keynote speech. So there we go. I found love at RSAC. What a story. And so that's why I ended up moving over. So for him and for the opportunity, and I've been here ever since. So I took over the reins fully of kind of RSAC globally back in 2019.
What a great story. Did you always know you wanted to be in the event industry, or did you catch that event bug and just decided you loved that adrenaline?
Do you know, I didn't. I fell into it, but I knew I was a good organizer. So when I left university, where I went to university in Wales, the University of Aberystwyth, and I studied French and German randomly. And then right out of university, I took a summer job in a doctor's surgery, and I was working for a doctor. And I was trying to keep his schedule on track. And that was when I realized I was a good organizer.
Right.
And that, I guess, is where it all began. And then from there, I kind of just fell into the events world, and it went from there, really. So,
yeah. I always say that I think that people, when they get in the event business, they get that event bug. And if you're a good planner, you like that adrenaline rush of running it, right? And being in the middle of it.
I totally agree. There is adrenaline, but also you really see the impact of what you've done. So, I know that the team feels that now. It's like you work so hard the planning cycle for RSAC is actually 18 months, but you work so hard for that period, and then you see the fruits of your labor very visibly.
Yeah. Have you had a time when we've all had one, but when that euphoria didn't come because something just didn't go as it was supposed to at the event?
Oh my goodness. There's always so many things that happen behind the scenes, right? That you don't plan for. I think you just kind of jump in and get it done. I mean, we've had some keynote speakers who didn't turn up. And then what do? You're left with a hall of 4,000 people where some poor person has to come on. But you know what? You just you get through it the best way you can. It's part of live events. There's always stuff, but I think it's how you deal with it. The show must go on, as it were. And I think mostly people are really understanding. When something happens that's out of your control, people are understanding.
Yeah. There's also that reminder. I just got married on New Year's Eve.
Congratulations. I didn't know that.
Thank you. And I had to remind my bride a couple weeks out that there are some things that aren't going to happen the way we've planned it or the way you desire. But we're the only ones that are going to ever know that. Everything is going to be great for the attendees, right? For the guests. Yeah. And you have to remind yourself that when you're in the business.
Yeah, you do. It's a good point.
So what were some of the key inflection points in your trajectory? You talked about, from, early on moving from planning for a doctor to getting the event phase. But, what was the specific risk that you took to get to where you are today? Or the mentor that helped lead you and guide you to get to where you are?
Yeah. I mean, let me think. Risks. I mean, I guess one of the biggest risks I took was moving to the States from the UK, right? I'd lived there for 2/3 of my life. And without wishing to age myself and giving my age away, I think you can probably tell by looking at me how long that might be. But I mean, it was a huge risk. I think when I look back now, and like my family are all in the UK still. My husband's family are also in the UK. So he is British by birth too, but he's just lived here a lot longer than me. But all that said, I was still moving. I was emigrating to all intents and purposes. So that was a big risk, and it's paid off. And this is as much home to me now as the UK is. And I'm very lucky that I get to go back very often. I'm actually going over tomorrow night to see my mum for a long weekend and my family, which is really, really important to me. So I think that was probably a massive inflection point, like one of those massive things that happens in your life that changes the course of what's going to happen to you.
For sure. In your role today, you're senior vice president, you're chief of staff. How do you define your leadership identity? Are you a strategist? Are you the community architect? How would you just define your leadership?
That's a great question. So I think like somebody once described to me my leadership style, which was nice to hear because it's, I'm definitely one of those people that isn't maybe so vocal about my own talents. He said to me, my leadership style is one of warmth, caring about people and having fun along the way. And I kind of like that.
That is good.
I think it's really important. Warmth to me is important. I'm a people person. I care about people. I am a strong believer that to nurture people, you have to let them be accountable for themselves. I also am a strong believer in you got to try things. And if they don't work out, that's okay. You gave it a try, move on, own it and move on. And I think that culture has become really strong at RSAC. We used to use a phrase always in beta. And I love it because I think we have a really good environment of being able to test things with confidence and taking a little bit of a risk with some of the things that we do. So, yeah, I think that's some of my leadership things.
It's a really good, definition. And you and I haven't worked directly together, but I know Calvin on our team, he has a lot of respect working with you. And he knows that the collaboration is always very positive and fruitful. So I know he appreciates it.
Well, you know what? One of the other things that's really, really important to me, working in events, as anybody knows, you do often work with a network of agencies, whether it's an event management partner with a security agency like Stratoscope. I actually don't care who you work for. To me, if you're working on RSAC, you're part of the team. Yeah. But it's really, really important. It hurts my heart when people say to me, wow, we don't often get treated like this by other clients. And I'm like, that's terrible. To me, it's like a dagger in the heart. I wouldn't want anybody to feel like that. You're part of our team, no matter who you work for. And I think, again, that's a really strong part of our culture. It makes people want to work here.
I asked this question once of a good friend. I've worked with her a lot. She's also British, Catherine Simmons at Salesforce. And
I know Catherine.
Yeah, I was guessing you might.
Yeah.
I asked her, how do you decide what's the right challenge to address? And, the event is still budget driven. You've got an amount of resource to put on this thing. How do you determine when you're going to build a bigger security plan or do more on this topic or that topic. It's I'm sure it's always a challenge being in your seat controlling the final purse.
Yeah.
What helps you with that decision making?
It is, but I think, you see things during the course of the year that bubble up, whether it's what's going on in the world, whether it's what you're hearing about in the events industry, whether it's what you're hearing about in the location that you have your event, just by reading the news, by reading the feedback. That we do so many surveys at RSAC because we really, really take the feedback that we get seriously. So there's always trends that you see in the surveys that we do. We get good guidance from our partners.
Right.
Like collaboration, as you've already said, is super important. It's not just me sitting there making the decisions. It's the team. It's the team sharing very openly what they're hearing and what they're seeing. A great example of this was when we worked with Calvin and Anthony on the implementation of weapons detection.
Right.
So, we first did that 3 years ago, and it was a massive change for us at the time. And there's a perception with it, good and bad, but we wanted to lead the way. It was really important to do it. And just knowing what is just going on in the world and some of the kind of threats that you see, it was the right time. It was the right time. So it was a risk, a good risk, a positive risk. We hope that people would understand, but, you always get people that don't. But I think, the majority of people did see that it was the right time to do something like that. When you're bringing together 40,000 people, safety and security has to be your top priority.
Right.
And it has become even more so, I would think, since COVID. So.
Right.
Yeah.
AI is currently dominating the news cycles. Is from your vantage point, is AI is it creating a paradigm shift for your partners, your cyber partners? Is it a topic that you're having to address with your conference agenda and your suppliers?
100%. I mean, it's dominating the conference agenda this year. Agentic AI is absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
As it should be. You every day you hear a different story. It's literally going to be everywhere from the main stage to the content. And aside from what's happening in cyber and at the conference, I think also there's going to be a shift out about how we use AI in business, how we use AI in events.
Yeah.
It's already becoming more prevalent. We had 3,000 session proposals this year for our track sessions, most ever, which was amazing. We're so lucky that we always get, a very passionate community who want to speak at the event. I'm sure AI was used in the creation of those. I'd be doing it. I do it. Of course you would, So it's just becoming, it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. Yeah. So if you want to know about AI and cyber, coming to RSCC is where you need to be.
Are you actually using AI in the management of the conference, the planning of the conference? Is there any specific examples you can give where AI has really helped?
No, we're not really right now. We're not right now. It is becoming an adopted business tool, I think. Yeah. And, many organizations are looking at their own AI adoption policy and how they control it within their business environments. I'm sure we will, for good, hopefully. And then, but we're not using it massively at this point.
Right. We're trying to do more. It's still a people business, and you still need... I'm sure there's something out there in the future that's going to help us from a planning perspective. Obviously, we have AI in the weapons detection and now the new X-ray. There's components of it, but we haven't found the AI that's going to replace the experience of the team planning it and delivering it yet. But who knows? One day.
Yes and no. I think that the beauty of what COVID taught us is that personal interaction and bringing people together and people spending time together is by far the most important thing. It fills people's cups, which is something that AI is never going to be able to do. So yes, it can absolutely help us be productive. But I don't think you're ever going to replace personal relationships.
Well, and I think the more AI gets into business, the more that personal interaction at the conferences is going to mean, it's going to mean more. It's going to be higher demand, right? Because you're going to use AI agents to do your simpler tasks, but that human interaction is still going to have high demand.
Yeah, people need people. That you just can't, you're never going to be able to change that, I don't think.
Right. For people that don't live in the event world, in your role, what is the job really mean day to day?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and I'm very lucky. I have a fantastic team that has been working on RSAC for a long time. And I think they've been working on it for a long time because they love the mission. It's a very mission-driven conference, a mission-driven company. People feel like they're doing a little bit good in the world. And, like I said, when you were asking about my leadership style, people do feel like they can own what they do. And we encourage people to test. So I think the team, loves to stay around for that. But all that said, I think, my team, they're experts at what they do. So I'm probably not quite so in the day-to-day of the business anymore. I more manage the business of the conference, which is great. But it's really managing the team, overseeing operations, including security, overseeing production. I take a big role in the keynote program. It's very visible. It's one of the main areas that our brand is on display. So working very closely with the marketing teams, doing a lot of PR and raising awareness about the conference in the industry and what we do, and just kind of running that day-to-day business of the conference, I would say.
Right. Do you feel pressure with the time you've been with the conference, you feel pressure to do something newer, better, more interesting each year, or is that not there?
Yes and no. I mean, every year is different because I think the conference changes and evolves with whatever's going on in the world. I mean, this is such a fast-paced industry, as you know. There's always something new and different and exciting to focus on. But I think there's I think if something's working, there's no point changing it. I think it's great to evolve when we need to evolve, but at the same time, people come to rely on RSAC for very specific things. And so, but yeah, I think everybody always feels a bit of healthy pressure. We want to stay at the top of our game.
For sure.
And, COVID changed everything. And, we were so fortunate that we came back and our kind of attendee level has kind of gone up and up since we did come back from COVID. But yeah, there's always a pressure, but a healthy pressure. But I think at the heart of it, we know what we're doing. We're doing it for the right reasons. And yeah.
What's the most misunderstood thing about security right now? The part like the public or even some executives, consistently don't really understand.
Wow. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm the most equipped person to ask that. I don't know if I can give you a good answer to that question. I can probably think about it from the conference perspective. Yeah. What's the biggest misconception about the conference? I think you always hear when you're reading the articles on LinkedIn and in other places that RSAC is vendor driven, and I just don't think that's true. I mean, the vendors are a huge part of what we do. It's a hugely important community, but we have so many amazing experts that come and speak at the conference. Our content is so rich, and it's open to anyone. And speaking at the conference, people wear a badge of honor to speak at the conference, and we're really grateful for that. So our heart is really about education. And, the vendors, like I said, massive part, hugely important to what we do. But I don't think it's all about that.
But you've had some very high profile guests at your conference, guests that create risk. Yeah. When I say guests, speakers, panelists, heads of big government departments and government security spaces. Does that increase pressure on you and your team?
It does. It does operationally, as I'm sure Anthony and Calvin have told you. Yeah. And it does with everything that we do. But that is what we are. We are a platform for conversation. And, for more than 3 decades, we have got leaders together from industry, academia, research, governments. Public and private partnership is at the heart of what we do. It's a really important part of our mission. And so it's important that we have those conversations at the conference.
Yeah, it is. Even knowing that some of the speakers that you have might have some confrontational aspects about them, not from their true experience, but just what the public thinks.
Right, absolutely. But like I said, it's important we have those conversations. And, I think it's a really important part of what we do. And the other thing is, we have 20% of our attendees are from outside of the US. So we have some really important people from all around the world coming. Right. So, our tagline is where the world talks security, and it's really true. But again, going to some of the security risks there, that's why we have a partner like Stratoscope. The team are fantastic at working through all of this with us to make sure that the speakers and our team has a kind of really seamless experience. We're so lucky that, our extended team, we've got some of the best in the business. Honestly, our production team is incredible. Nth Degree, our partner, is amazing too, and everybody cares about the outcome. Everybody cares about the conference. So.
Yeah. Where does physical security, i.e. the work that we do for you, and cybersecurity, where does that bridge come together?
Wow.
And have you had it?
Yeah. It's with many people, like, so my husband that I talked about, he's the chief security officer now of ADP. So he has both physical and cyber under him. So, they kind of do meld together. So, we plan for anything and everything. And I know within our security team, we have folks that look after the cyber monitoring. We have a strong incident response team, but also we have the physical security team. We're kind of all part of one thing together. So, and, we talked earlier before this started, we had yesterday our annual tabletop, which is all about security preparedness. And we get, 40 members of the team together just to go through the what ifs and make sure that we are prepared to deal with them. We will always go through physical and kind of digital cyber scenarios within that. Right. So it's important. Right. We're prepared for all of it.
Let's talk about exercising, right? It's planning for the worst outcomes, right? What are some of the lessons that you've taken away from running that, having that, being a participant in that annual exercise and seeing how your team, reacts or your vendors, any specific lessons from the exercising you've done in the past?
Yeah, I think it's all about the plan that you put in place, understanding what roles people play, which are outside of their normal roles. When you're planning for an incident and you have an incident management team members have slightly different roles to what they would have on a daily basis. I think it's all about understanding the chain of command and knowing who needs to know what, when, and who we need to reach out to, and, just being prepared for incidents as they may happen. You can't prepare for everything, but I think if you can, I know everybody goes into those exercises slightly nervous, but comes away feeling like, okay, that was quite a stressful couple of hours. However, I now have a much better understanding if something happened, who I would go to and how this whole thing would unfold. And, you can do there's a lot of planning that you can do, but you can never plan for every scenario. But I think just knowing who needs to be pulled into what, when is a big part of it.
I think the key for any of these exercises is walking with exactly what you said. Communications and decision-making. Because the scenario that you actually face is going to be different than the exercise.
Yeah.
But you've worked out who's going to make what decisions, and what communication is important to make sure the right decision gets made.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Talk about whether it's, the overall event equation or the security equation. We're at the intersection of people, technology, capital, trust. Which of those variables is the most fragile in your mind?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think a lot of it is to do with, do you mean fragile from the perspective of coming to the conference, or what could affect the conference?
What could affect? Like you're relying on all of these pieces to run a great event, right? Which is the piece that's, that you worry about more than others?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting people there as well.
Yep.
We want to make sure people find San Francisco still an accessible location. And, it's no secret that San Francisco's definitely had its challenges over the years and the ups and downs. But, I know that the mayor and other city officials are resolutely committed to turning the tide, and they're doing an amazing job. And, I love San Francisco. It's one of my favorite cities in the States for sure. And, we've been there since 1991 on and off. So It's our 35th anniversary this year. We often say San Francisco is in our DNA. So I do believe that we truly believe it's a great location for us. And it's great for international visitors as well. It's the heart of Silicon Valley. There's many great things, but obviously we want to create a safe and secure environment for everybody. So I think, it's known as being expensive as well, but we work hard to make it as cost effective for people as we can by working with a number of the hotels there, and the economy, what's going on in the economy plays a huge part in whether people can afford to come, and what budget scenarios are. So there's lots of different factors.
But the city is greatly improving.
It's amazing.
We've been doing events there for a long time and saw it at its low. I hope that we don't see that low again. But they are really doing a great job understanding the conference business is so important to them, and doing a great job to support the conferences.
And we have I've been asked, what is important to you with the location that you're in? What's important, what makes it work? And I think a lot of it is down to relationships, Dan. Like, we spend a lot of time working with San Francisco Travel in the city. We've built up great relationships with them over the years. They're friends at this point, and I care about them all and they care about the conference. And they work really, really hard to make that city as sparkly, shiny as they can, and clean as well. I know that's been a complaint, but they work hard. And I think they've done a really good job at turning the tide on some of the negative press cycles. So.
For sure. And the support that SFPD is getting, to really look at not just the venue, but the whole footprint with the hotels and everything to make it safe for your guests. It's really, they've done a great job, I think.
Yeah.
If you could sit every CEO down for 10 minutes, what are the 3 non-negotiables you would tell them to fund and measure as it is around safety and security of their events?
Wow. Okay. A, have it. I know that sounds crazy, but we're in the business. So security has always been really, really important to us. And I'm sure it's become increasingly important to people. But, we have a very, very robust security program. And I would encourage anyone that's running a big event, you need it. Right. You need it. You need to have great partners. That's the second thing, because your partnerships will help shape what you do. Like, everybody is experts in their own field. We can't be experts at everything. Work with experts.
Right.
And I really mean it. And then the third thing, could it just be 2 things?
Yeah,
those are my top 2. I think
Love it.
Yeah.
You talked about you're on probably an 18-month planning cycle for your big event annually.
Yeah.
When do you pull security and crowd management into that planning cycle? And do you think it should be sooner than you are? Have you found that you've moved it forward, back? It's too soon. What's the right time?
Yeah, no, I feel like we've kind of, after this amount of time, we've kind of got it down relatively well. I mean, a lot of it goes, what's going on in the world, and, some things bubbling up, who knows? But, in general, I would say we start the conversations probably 6 months out. And then kind of in the last kind of 3 to 4 months is when we start having meetings every other week. We have a regular cadence with all the stakeholders that need to be on from a security perspective. But I think, we've got a good long-term relationship with your team over there at Stratoscope. So we know each other as well now, which helps. And I just think, the sooner you can put your plans in place, the better. But you can't do it too soon either, because you've got to be able to have your agenda in place. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to know all the venues that you're using, all the hotels that you're using. So I kind of think between kind of 4-6 months is when you start those initial conversations. And then the nearer you get, you kind of go into the regular meeting cadence.
Along these same lines, then, let's go back to the first year that you worked with our team, with Calvin and Co.
Yeah.
What were talk to me about some of the hurdles of bringing on a new vendor, and maybe a vendor that looked at things differently and wanted to do more than just, core security guards and access control. What were some of the challenges working with a new vendor like Stratoscope?
Yeah. Well, I think, RSAC is so massive and there's so many different components to it that for somebody coming in blind who's never been before, there's just a lot of information to share.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not a hurdle. It's just a fact of it is what it is. But it's like it's a big learning curve. It's a big ramp up in that first year of doing something. So I'm sure the planning cycle was a lot longer for year one, and I'm sure Calvin and Anthony felt it too. I think just getting to know each other and getting to know what makes each other tick, understanding the culture of the company, understanding the leadership team for them, understanding what's important to me and my team, all of that just takes time. It takes time. And I think you have to get through the first cycle. You have to see it all in action. You have to see how people react and how the event flows to really truly understand it. I think once you've been through it that first time, it gets a lot easier. But I think it's just it's the information flow and the relationship building there have to be big focal points in year one.
100%. It's, we think that a 10, 20, 30, 40,000 person event, there are a lot of common elements, but how you want it run versus how somebody else wants it run, or what's important to you, or your event objectives. How do we make sure that we meet your event objectives are very important.
Yeah.
If you could look forward 12 to 18 months, what's the industry going to be debating? And what do they need to pay the most attention to in the next year and a half?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it will be AI version 2.0, whatever that is. I mean, it's only going to get more intense, I think, around that as we go. And I think it will also be increasingly how AI has been adopted into our everyday life and the risk that comes with that. I can't imagine, unless there truly is an AI bubble and it all poofs and disappears in the next year, which I very highly doubt. I think it's just going to be, more of that.
Yeah. What do you want your legacy to be?
That's a really good question. When I decide to retire, which hopefully is not yet, I think I've got a few good years in me left.
For sure.
I want people to think back and think, that I was a good leader and that people liked working for me. But it goes back to that warmth. I want people to remember that, I led RSAC through some challenging times, not from what was going on in the world,
Right.
that we bounced back. It was great, but that they liked working for me and the culture that I really champion and the people that I champion. And, I hope that I would never leave without making sure the team is ready. Right. There's some amazing people that are in our company and in our team. So I know that they'll be in really good hands, but I just want, well, you know what? I want people to look back and think Linda's a decent, kind human, because that to me is the most important thing, Dan. Being a good person is really important.
It's all I've ever heard about you.
Oh, thank you.
So it's fantastic. What's that one most challenging issue you've had to deal with at the event, and what's the lessons that were learned out of it?
I would say without question, it was navigating through the COVID years.
Yeah,
for sure, because it all happened so quick. Then events were off the table, of course, for a while, and then we ran in 2021 a huge virtual event, which none of us had ever really done. We didn't have any technology really in place to be able to do it. Innovation was huge. It just exploded. There was a new kind of virtual event company coming at you every week, it felt like.
Right.
So kind of navigating through that, but navigating through our relationships as well, contracting processes, suddenly force majeure clauses were being pulled. And it was just like this whole bewildering world. I can see you're smiling. I'm bringing back some PTSD. But, I just think back to our sponsors and exhibitors, and we just really tried to work through the whole thing with them, making sure that they were taken care of. Like, they're spending a lot of money to take part. Like, how could we figure that out for them for the future so they wouldn't lose out? And I think the way we approached it we've got great relationships with our partners. And I think it paid off, but it was by far the most challenging thing we've come through. But, there were great things that have come out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that they've just made us stronger. We've all realized how important people are, which we've already covered on. It's like you realize those in-person kind of interactions are just so important. They're what make us function as people. But, doing this kind of thing, having virtual meetings, people used to shudder if you asked them to come on video. Do you remember? It was like, go on video? No way. I just don't even think about it. People turn up in their pajamas now with dogs and kids, and I love it. And it's human, and it's who we all are. So in that regard, I think it's made things like that much more real, much more authentic. I think that's by far the hardest thing. But
some of that technology innovation you're still using today, I assume. You're broadcasting sessions that you probably never did before to a much wider audience that aren't there in person, right? That's one of the big benefits of that exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. Yeah. If there was one thing you could provide the advice to somebody that's young and new that wants to get into this industry, what would that advice be?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, let me think about it. Relationships are at the heart of everything. That is my advice. Actually, that would be my advice to anybody, not just in the events industry.
Right.
But relationships are what carry you through. It's really true.
Yeah.
That's it. Work on your networks. Be genuine, be authentic. That's the other thing. I think between those two things, just be yourself. Be yourself.
Yep. People work with people they like.
It's really true. People work with people that they like, and taking time to build those relationships it's so important.
All right, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
Your husband's a chief security officer.
Mm-hmm.
You run a cybersecurity conference.
Yeah.
What happens over dinner at your house? Is it all security conversations?
No, it's not. I think we're both quite good at making sure we take time for ourselves. So we're not newlyweds quite like you, Dan, but we've only been married for 10 years. So we still really like hanging out with each other. We've got 2 very active dogs. I've got 2 stepsons. So we have a full life. But you know what? It's really good that we actually understand each other's worlds, because I think that helps. It's like you were saying, your wife does a podcast. You understand the worlds that you inhabit. And I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but I'm sure, there's times, and she also runs all the marketing and PR for my 5 companies now. And there's times when I have to say, okay, no more work time conversation, right? Like, let's talk about something else, right?
Yeah,
because she'd work 18 hours a day if I let her.
Yeah,
like,
I know. We're all the same, but no, we're good. We take time, definitely over dinner.
It's critically important. Linda, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to another great event with your team.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.